All right, we're going to go into block number 10. We have what we call post fatigue. The general idea behind post fatigue is to increase tension in either a muscle group or, in this case, a movement pattern, right? We all have this end capacity when we're going through a set. And what you find, you should say, for example, a squat, we try to find a mechanical advantage. The way we typically find a mechanical advantage in something like a squat is we push our hips back, we drop our chest, and we try to take that tension off that muscle group, specifically the quad that we're going through. But this is applicable to all pretty much patterns and muscle groups. It's when we reach that end capacity or whatever it is from a fatigue substrate. And I won't go into the physiology of fatigue, but we reach that threshold where we can no longer sustain that stress in that localized area. And we've tried to amend the pattern by adjusting the tension in that area. And what post fatigue really does is allows us to extend the set while targeting the specific muscle groups or that movement pattern that we're trying to address. So as you're going through this, you're going to hit your capacity. And as you get to that capacity, think about preserving range of motion, position, and then fighting the good fight. The execution when we're tired is what makes the difference, right? That is the secret sauce of any strength conditioning program. And as we go through some of the B series stuff, you'll see a lot of unilateral alternate type. The reason why we like unilateral alternate movements for these like more hypertrophy work capacity training blocks is it just extends the set. We do double the work, so we get essentially double the amount of stress, and we're trying to change our body composition. We're trying to improve lean muscle mass. The idea is to extend things out longer under as high as possible external load and doing it in a safe and progressive manner. And if you can do that, chances are we're going to get pretty good results. All right, so let's go into practice number 1. So that's the wrong one. Our first training block is going to be focus on quadricep. So a lot of you are getting, really exposed to allegiance programming for the first time. Should this be your first or maybe even your second training block? One of the things that we'll see over time, the pattern will play itself out, is practice 1 or first workout of the week will always be focused on a lower body anterior chain squat type movement. And that will rotate between like split squats or a squat pattern. And the general idea is to get as much knee flexion of the leg that I'm trying to work or legs that I'm trying to work, combine that with a vertical torso, and that keeps maximal tension in that quadricep. So when you're looking at the video, you'll see more of a fuller range of motion split squat. We like to use the cue escalator, not elevator. And what that gets is a little bit more quadricep. And it's twofold to that as well. One, we can create more hypertrophy, but we actually get more bang for the buck. So I'd rather you go lighter and through a fuller range of motion than heavier than a partial range of motion. So the way this will operate, so we'll do a front foot elevated split squat. If you have access to like some pull blocks, use those. We utilize DC blocks or these like stackable blocks in the gym, which are a great tool. If you don't have that, don't worry about it. Plate will work just fine. And the elevation puts us in this like backward position. And usually this allows us to time that ankle dorsiflexion or that ankle movement, forward movement, combined with that pelvic orientation or where that pelvic is situated, relatively speaking, to your torso. And that control of that really can allow for greater knee flexion or knee bending and get more stress into that quad. So we're going to go 8 with a 2-second down. So you'll see the tempo below that, 2-0-XO. So we're going to go down 1, 2, up. You'll see X. That's a little bit more explosive at the bottom. So we hit that end range, hamstring and the calf, drive back hard without pushing our butt back or dropping our chest. We want to keep our torso vertical. We want to push hard through that front leg, try to extend that quad, come all the way back down. We're going to go 8 right, 8 left. And then we're going to immediately transition to a hack squat. Grab onto 2 dumbbells, get your feet up on a slant board or squat wedge of some sort. And then what we're going to do is take those dumbbells from my pocket down to the side of my ankle. And the general idea here is, again, maintaining your upright torso, getting as much knee flexion as possible, stressing the quad completely and holistically in that position. So we're going to go 8 right, left on the split squat, 12 on the hack squat, rest 2 minutes, rinse, wash, and repeat for 4 total sets. After we're done with the A series, we'll progress into our B series. We'll go into a kettlebell alternating dead stop row. Now, if you don't have access to two kettlebells, just go dumbbells and try to pull from the lowest position possible. The nice thing about that dead stop or from the ground is you're gonna be able to pull from a fixed position. So as I'm pulling and I'm getting more and more fatigued, we have that end range that we want to be in. Good hinge mechanics, knees back, butt back, shoulders below parallel to the ground, and trying to pull with just the arm coming up and pushing that rib cage down. We're going to go 8, alternating right, left from the bottom up with a 2 count down. So it's pull, 1, 2, pull opposite side, 1, 2. We're going to pair this up with a B stance, barbell medium grip, RDL or Romanian deadlift. So grab onto a barbell, 1 foot forward, 1 foot back. I always want to make this really clear. Just because we're in a split stance doesn't mean the back leg doesn't matter, right? We're really trying to stress that front leg because that's going to get more degrees of flexion. But when we're setting up in that stance, all 5 toes on that back foot got to be pointed straight ahead because we want to avoid rotation at that pelvis and that thorax or that rib cage. So as I'm loading that front hip, I want to stay symmetrical with that bar. And you'll feel that bar rotate towards the back leg. Fight it by pushing all 5 of your toes and your back foot down, pushing your front heel back, and then really trying to sit into that hip hinge. 8 with the right foot forward, 8 with the right foot or left foot forward, and then move on to push-ups. I have in here rings, and what I really want to get across is we're looking for some sort of deficit, right? So if I can get deeper into that position, the better. So rings are a really good tool if you have access to a TRX. It's fine. If you don't have access to a TRX or rings, just set your hands up on plates so we can get deep into that stretch. We're going to go 12. And the progression or the regression is hands and toes in contact with either the rings or the ground. Then we regress down to hands on the rings. And then we're going to go toes on the ground on the way down and then drop our knees, push yourself back up. And the third and final regression will be going hands on the rings and then knees on the ground. So hands and toes on the way down, hands and knees all the way up and down. Then we'll move into some bis and tris. We got a standing easy bar curl. If you don't have access to a easy bar, just use a traditional straight bar, but keep it light, focus on tension, focus on technique. And then we're going to go press down or push down with a high pulley, medium grip, neutral. So just grabbing onto a tricep. All right, let's get into practice number 2. So practice number 2 is a semi-supinated grip chin-up. Now, if you're struggling with chin-ups, you can just go immediately to a lat pull down. The general idea here is to try to get as many concentric reps till failure and not forcing it, because the benefit of post-fatigue is we don't have to supersede whatever my concentric limit is on a chin-up. Chin-up is a supinated grip. Chin-up, palms facing your face, pull-ups, palms facing away. That matters. It definitely does. So chin-up facing your face, we're going to get full flexion, nose towards the bottom, get full extension, getting your chin above the bar at the top. We're going to go upwards to 8. If you can hit 8 on all 4 sets, even with the post-fatigue, I recommend you adding weight with the dip belt. If you can't hit 8, just go to concentric failure. If you can't hit 1, just go immediately over to a lat pull down, keeping that semi-supinated grip if at all possible. And that's also with a 2 count down. We're going to pair this up with a pullover. So the preferred method we like is to be on a bench and get deeper into that shoulder flexion. Elbows are extended, really trying to lengthen the tricep all the way through the lat while keeping your rib cage down. So if I can stretch on that lat by bracing or creating some sort of stability in my rib cage by pulling down, like almost like you're doing a crunch, pulling that shoulder back, you're going to get a lot more stretch into that lat, and you probably get more comfortable in the bottom of the chin up or a pull up. So we're going to go 8 into 12. If you struggle with the range of motion, just adjust the range of motion slightly. If you don't feel comfortable with that dumbbell floating above your head, just go right on the ground and have a stop point, right? Ground below you, you're going to hit the ground. You're going to have some definitive stop point of a good fail safe. If you feel comfortable doing pullovers, just set up off a bench. Another alternative too, you go on the ground and maybe bracing up some like balance pads or yoga block so you have a higher end point. We're going to go 8 and 12 or upward to concentric failure, and then 12 for 4 sets with a 2-minute break in between. And then we're going to move into a B series. So B1 will be a reverse lunge with a kettlebell in that front rack position, single arm. So whatever leg is staying on the block, that opposite arm is holding the kettlebell. If you do not have access to a kettlebell, just grab onto a dumbbell and go a suit K position or off to the side in a contralateral position. And the same thing we want to talk about with our front foot elbow split squat is very similar to what we're doing here with our reverse lunge. So if I do 8 on the right, I should look at that bottom position as a spitting image of what I'm doing with my front foot elevated split squat. So if I get deep into that range, hamstring present the calf, chest completely perpendicular to the ground, and I load that full quad on that front leg, I shouldn't be able to tell the difference in that bottom position if I'm doing a reverse lunge or a split squat. Now, when I come out of that position, we want to keep our chest up, push hard through that front leg, bring that trail leg back forward there. We're going to go 8 in a row on the right, 8 in a row on the left, and then we'll move on to our B series. I mean, our B2. We're going to go a kettlebell alternate overhead press or dumbbell. So we're going to press from the top down on this one. So press them both up, bringing it down. 1. The idea is we want to be in a lengthened or tension position, depending on if we're going to be a pressing or a pulling exercise. So lengthened for a pulling exercise for anything alternate, shortened or a contracted position when we're doing a pressing exercise. Semantics, like not really that big of a deal if you go from the bottom up, just more of a, like, we really want to attack the musculature and the specific muscle fiber type and the structure of that. The extensor mace muscles are mechanically disadvantaged. So the general idea is we want to push them in a position where they are contracting harder and more versus a flexor base or pulling base muscle groups are mechanical advantage. So we want to put them in a lengthened position to start. You don't need to get into the technical aspect. Just trust your old pal Tim is really thinking deeply about this and he knows what he's doing. But top down, make sure we're pushing up. The cue I always give everyone on alternate is you're pulling on the arrow. So I want to create tension in my opposite arm. So if I'm overhead here and I'm here, I'm actively pushing up. Then I come down, I'm actively pushing up. Try to avoid turning it into a, Frank the Tank, living my best life kind of thing. Be very strategic and disciplined with one arm moving at a time. And we're going to finish up with a knee flexion or foam roll leg curl. We want to do an extended or accentuated eccentric. So we're going to pull in with 2 and push out with 1. If you don't have access to a foam roller and you have access to potentially a prone leg curl, I highly recommend using a prone leg curl so you can get as much load on those hamstrings as possible. Structural balance is key, and if we create tension in that area by targeting those tissues, great. Then we'll finish up a little shoulder. So we're going to go a upright row with a cable rope. So pulling up towards my chin, we're going to go 12 reps there, and then a bent over lateral raise. So just good hinge position, dumbbell one arm, neutral grip here. So we're going to go up and out, trying to pull our pinky to the sky. Let's move into practice number 3. Sorry, I thought I had this pulled up. All right, practice number 3 is going to be more of that hip hinge focus. So we're going to go a rack pull or block deadlift, whatever's available to you. We want to start around that knee, right above the kneecap, getting good hinge position. I always tell people, pull the bar back into your knee, push your knees back, push your shoulders forward, feel tension in your hamstrings, pull your thumbs into the bar and pull hard. Now, since it's a post fatigue, we do want to be conscious of, okay, what is going to be the rate limiting step here? And if looking at any posterior chain exercise, it really gets into, okay, well, my back is probably going to be that limiting factor. Can I maintain a neutral spine by pulling my shoulder blades back, pushing my belly button forward and keeping my chin tucked? And if I feel like I'm getting like a scared cat type of pull, best cue is to go lighter, no matter what, bar none. I'd rather you feel confident in that brace position. And it's always the first rep, because there's an idea that we can think about is momentum generated after that first rep. And we can get into hydrodynamics here. As I start to open and close a joint, so if I look at my hip, when I'm in that deep flex position or I'm set up over that bar, I'm flexed. So the open side is filled with fluid or water, because we're just basically huge water bags. When I stand up, now I'm creating that now open angle into a closing angle, and I'm opening up the front side. Fluid's going to rush into that backside. Now, what that means in terms of maintaining a neutral posture is when every time I go to the second rep, fluid is not moving. It's got momentum. And what that does is it creates this assistance. It's almost like a spot of sort that is now creating momentum when you're doing these movements. So when you're setting up, it's not the second through the 8th rep, it's the first rep that's most important. So set up, thumbs into the bar, push your knees back, push your shoulders forward, really try to pull the flat back. If you resort to using straps and you can't maintain a flat back, I would just say ditch your straps and really try to pull a bar that you can maintain. Because it's less about total load right now. It's more about total time and attention. So you're going from either a block or a rack pull into a dumbbell RDL and the same mechanics here. Now, if I can get you doing longer range of motion, I didn't talk about this in the other 2 practices because it really doesn't apply. maybe a little bit to practice too, because we're going chin up and a pullover, but there's a longitudinal or a lengthwise hypertrophy effect when we do some of these movements. So if I do a shortened position on a rack pull or block deadlift, so I'm really trying to contract my glutes, really trying to get more of those proximal or muscle fibers closer to that hip, there's going to be that one effect. And then I can look at a lengthened position. So now with the dumbbell RDL, I'm trying to get more to the distal or further down the actual muscle fiber type of muscle or sarcomeres or contractile tissue towards the knee. So if I push my butt back and I push my shoulder forward and I really get a good deep stretch on those hamstrings, I'm going to get a different type of hypertrophy. And that's really important. You should feel a unique level of soreness coming through one of these like shortened and lengthened position type of post fatigues, because you're getting more of this stretch that's coming on there. And these flexor-based muscle groups that are mechanically advantaged, the reason why they're mechanically advantaged is one, it's a lever, right? So that's just simple engineering. But the other end of it is it's got more connective tissue and less actual sarcomeres or contractile tissue. It is what we call a parallel muscle. And when we stretch a mechanically advantaged position type of muscle fiber, then we're going to really get into different type of hypertrophy mechanisms. So 12 reps, getting good deep stretch. I'd rather you go light and through a full range of motion, maintaining neutral spine, chin tuck, back flat, pushing your butt back, stretching out the hamstrings in a deep, profound manner, than going super heavy and getting crappy mechanics, right? Light is right. We want maximum benefit with minimal external load. Then we'll move into our B series. We're going to go an alternate bench, or the same thing we're doing with our alternate overhead press. Arms extended, pulling, pressing, one arm going down, one arm going up. We'll go a lateral lunge. We'll keep the dumbbells in between our feet. So as I step right, I'm keeping my dumbbell inside shade of that knee. You can alternate here, or you can go right for 10 and then 11 for 10. And then we'll just finish off with a traditional barbell grip inverted row. If you're really good in inverted rows, I would suggest lifting your feet up on a bench or some blocks or something where you can elevate so you have more weight in your hands. And then some biceps and tries. We have a curl. So we're going to do a dumbbell offset curl with the incline, right and then left. And then we'll go tricep extension, sometimes referred to a different name for an exercise, but basically bringing the dumbbells down, getting strength in the tricep. The videos are there. All right, let's finish up with some conditioning here. So if you get through all 3 practices and you feel a little saucy and you want to get that 4th practice in there, awesome. If not, if you don't feel like you need conditioning, completely fine as well. So we're going to go 2 exercises paired up for 3 different series, A, B, and C. First series is going to be a kettlebell or dumbbell push press, dip, drive, punch for 10 reps. And then we're going to immediately transition for A2 for a bent over pronated grip lateral raise. So we're going to get a good hinge position, work in the rear delt for 20 reps. Really light on A2, really light on B2, really light on C2. And I'll keep reminding you on that. So we're going to get heavy on A1 and then light, but getting a lot more volume on that. So we get a little bit more of that total body vertical press with a little bit of momentum from the lower body. And then we're going to pair that up with an upper body hinge position, bent over row, 20 reps, rest 1 minute, and then repeat. This should be 0 seconds. All right. Then we'll move into our B1, B2. We're going to go a kettlebell swing. We like hard style here. So if you're familiar with kettlebell work, we want to make sure that we're rotating our thumb into that kettlebell handle. We want to push our butt and hips back. We want to get in a good deep hinge position. And we want to get 10 violent reps. Heavy's better, but if you feel like you're losing your back position, if you feel like you're squatting into it, if you feel like you're not very confident, go to the weight that you feel comfortable with, make it conditioning oriented. And then we'll pair that up with a pull down with the straight arm. So grab onto a tricep rope or a cable column. If you don't have access to that, just grab onto a band. If you don't have access to a band or a tricep rope, a TRX or a ring rollout is a great option as well. We're going to go 20 reps on that. If you are doing rollout, I highly suggest you do 10 reps, but your call on that. But pull down, we're trying to now get that length and position of the shoulder and then pull it down. Last 2, we're going to go a kettlebell clean, single arm, because I want to get that right, left if we possibly can. So 10 right, 10 left, because double arm clean it's a tough one, right? If you've ever done a double arm clean, it's a wide stance, bounces in the middle, and then you have to figure out a way to time both hands. I find as we're learning how to kettlebell clean, one arm is just cleaner, easier, more manageable going through it. If you feel like you're confident, you got a lot of experience with kettlebells, double arm clean is completely fine. And then we're going to go a lateral raise, but a little momentum. So kick up, 20 reps, like a Dorian Yates, bodybuilder, if you remember those things, but a little bit of momentum from the ground up so we can really overload those shoulders for 20 reps. And that's 1 minute rest. So 5 rounds of each of those series. Remember, the fourth day is optional. If you feel like you will work on conditioning, you need an extra little push in there. If not, completely fine. 3 days of strength training. Okay, that wraps up the training. As everything in terms of nutrition, you do have the capabilities of tracking your macros. So if you go onto your account and you look at macro tracking, just start setting a goal. We always tell people, hey, the sweet spot is 14 to 16 if you want to maintain your body weight. If you want to lose weight, multiply your body weight by 12 to 14. That's the calories you're supposed to take in every single day. You put you around a 500 to around a 250 to 500 calorie deficit. And then if you want to gain weight, you just go 16, 18. Now, with that being said, is your macronutrients underneath that. Anytime we're doing a hypertrophy block, I always strongly encourage people to focus on a lot of protein and carb, just because those are the two primary things that we're doing, and they'll have a big impact on building muscle and actually getting more from your workouts, which will subsequently increase lipolysis of fat burning. But we're looking for a gram per pound of protein, as always, on your protein intake, unless you have some sort of diagnosis of where you can't taking a lot of protein, like renal function or kidney function. But other than that, you should be fine to get a gram per pound of protein. Definitely well vetted and definitely high efficacy in terms of bringing value to adding lean muscle mass. And then carbohydrates. Some people adhere to a lower carbohydrate approach. If you're ever going to do a increase in carbohydrates, I would say just on these training blocks. So, when we're doing, more fat burning, like a muscular endurance, like it's probably better just to embrace that challenge by going a little bit lower carb. But this one, you're going to get definitively better response from the actual training and recover faster, just because that's the way we operate. We're doing these more glycolytic system type work. But, if we're doing a gram per pound of protein, I like to get 2 to 3 grams per pound of carbohydrates on these hypertrophy blocks. But that's the caveat of, hey, there's good and bad sources of carbohydrates, right? Like very high glycemic, very quickly digesting versus high fiber, very slow, complex carbohydrates. They're different and they make a big impact on body composition. And if you're young and you feel like you have a great metabolism, by all means, have at that high glycemic carb. Let's just really try to time it around your workouts. If you're getting to the point where in your 30s and 50s and you want to maintain a good body composition, a slow digesting high fiber carb is going to be your kind of go-to. But end result is still increasing your carbohydrates. You determine on that based off of what you feel like you can tolerate. And if I was going to tell you, if you've been doing ketogenic diets and progressing into a more increased carbohydrate approach, your best bet is the timing around your workouts, pre, intra, post. Those are usually the best times we tolerate carbohydrates because we have a specific sensitivity to it. There's a GLUT4 transporter that gets activated when we do any kind of resistance training or exercise and allows us to shuttle in glucose into our muscles a little bit more efficiently. And those become present when we do physical exertion. The rest of the time, it really becomes an active thing. Usually that's the thing that leads to quote unquote insulin resistance. So there's 2 clear mechanisms to improve insulin sensitivity. It's going to be intermittent fasting or reducing calories and then exercise. Those are probably the 2 most important ones. So if you want to improve your insulin sensitivity, intermittent fasting, you can amplify or compound the effect by doing cold water immersion, but that's another conversation. And then resistance training or exercise are going to be your most important things in terms of improving your insulin sensitivity. Those are naturally easy. You should also mention for blood sugar regulation, not necessarily insulin sensitivity, but blood sugar regulation is going to be sleep. If you get 8 hours of deep sleep, you're going to have better blood sugar control. So all that being considered, increase your carbohydrates. If you're still want to stay a ketogenic approach, I highly recommend something like ketone esters and then potentially a UCAN, which is a non-insulin impacting superstarch. Wonder drugs makes a big difference. Good way to get energy as well as not having an insulin spike. So all that being considered, have some fun. Let's get after it. Let's train really hard. If you guys have any questions, put them in the chat room. In the next coming weeks, we're going to introduce a community. So I'll do a weekly call to kind of go through Q&A or some updates and stuff, but I will give an announcement on the air for that. All right, guys. Thank you.